Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second TMA virtual briefing with the Illinois Gubernatorial candidate. My name is Rich Carter. I'm TMA's Government Affairs Consultant, and I'll be the moderator for today's briefing. We're joined by TMA News Editor Fran Eaton, and our special guest today is DuPage County Sheriff James Mendrick, who's a candidate for the Republican nomination for Illinois Governor. Good morning, Fran and Sheriff Mendrick.
Good morning. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for joining us. Well, with hundreds of state and federal candidates battling for their party's nominations in the March 17th primary election in Illinois, TMA members and their employees are in a great position to help decide who will represent them in Springfield and Washington, D.C. going forward. One of the most significant races for TMA members on the March 17th ballot is the Republican gubernatorial race, with 4 candidates vying to take on incumbent Governor JB Pritzker in November. Knowing what's at stake in the race for governor, TMA reached out to the candidates and requested their participation in individual virtual briefings with TMA members. Today's the second of those briefings, and we'll be interviewing the remaining Republican candidates the next 2 weeks leading up to the election. We're going to spend the next half hour having a conversation with Sheriff Mendrick to learn his background, why he's running for governor, and how he can help TMA members thrive and create good-paying jobs for the people of Illinois. At the end of the program, TMA members will have an opportunity to ask written questions of Sheriff Mendrick by typing into the Q&A tab on the Zoom control panel. Now we'll turn it over to TMA News Editor Fran Eaton, who will introduce our special guest, give him a few minutes to tell us why he's running for governor, and ask him the first several questions. Fran?
Good morning. Thank you, Rich. And I'm wanting to make sure that I call you by the right title. It's Sheriff. I looked up Your Honor, Your Majesty, nothing like that worked.
No, just Sheriff.
It's just Sheriff. So I'm going to be calling you Sheriff, okay?
Sounds good.
And we're so delighted that you're coming today. And I think that a lot of people just don't really pay a lot of attention to primaries, but that's really where the determining runoffs are. That in the Olympics right now, we're thinking about runoffs and how you get to that level of being at the top of the top notch. And so in March 17th, we will be having a runoff here in the state of Illinois. And in the Republican side of things, the gubernatorial candidates, we have 4 on the ballot. I guess it depends on where you're at. There's some counties that are kind of still figuring it out. But nevertheless, we have at this point at least 4 candidates that will be on the ballot if you pull a Republican ballot. And last week we spoke with Mr. Heidner. This week we're going to talk with Sheriff Mendrick. And Sheriff Mendrick is in DuPage County. And rather than me to express to you what my view of his bio, I'm going to let him tell us what he wants us to know about himself. Go ahead.
Well, hi. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. So I've spent more than 3 decades in law enforcement. I started in 1996 at the DuPage County Sheriff's Office, rising to executive leadership, where I manage budgets, personnel, facilities, public safety operations. In my current role as sheriff, I oversee complex operations that require fiscal discipline, accountability, results, not theory. I have an $80 million budget. I've run that budget for 12 years. I manage 504 static employees and about 300 contractors. So I supervise over 800 people. And I like to always add that not only do I run an $80 million budget, and in a 12-year period of time, we've never gone a dollar over our appropriation. We've always stayed within our budget. We very stretch our taxpayer dollars. I decided to run for governor because Illinois challenges are no longer abstract. Families are leaving. Employers are relocating. Job creators are losing confidence in state leadership. I believe Illinois needs new leadership, grounded in real-world management experience. Leadership that understands how policy decisions affect workers, employers, and communities on the ground. I think we need somebody who has been established in government. You know, I'm in DuPage County, which is right next door to Cook County, where I get most of my customers from. But, you know, we are the second biggest county in the state, and DuPage gets all the overspill that comes out of the city. So I think we need an emergency manager too. Crime is so high right now. You know, people keep saying crime is down, but what you don't realize is there's a thing called Illinois Uniform Reporting Codes, IUCR codes, that is how we always reported crime in the past. And they switched our systems from that to something called NIBRIS, which categorizes crime differently. So it's easy to abstractly say crime went down, just like when they say murder is down or overdoses are down. Well, shootings are up and attempted overdoses are up, but medical technology saves so many people now in the medical environment. So the actually fatality of those two incidents is much lower simply because of medical technology. But again, the reason I'm doing this is I believe that we need somebody can manage government budget, and knows how to handle emergency management because we do have a big crime problem.
Well, we are asking questions from the perspective of small and mid-sized manufacturers here in the state of Illinois. We're the revenue producers, the job producers, and we're really interested in knowing your thoughts on what would you your vision of what you would like to see Illinois' business front be, and the the overall effect that would be on small and mid-sized manufacturers.
So my vision is an Illinois that's stable, that's competitive and accountable, a state where employers can plan for the future, workers can build careers, and government lives are within their means. Again, like I said, I always stay within our appropriation. I think it's very salient because that's not something the state does right now. They go outside their budget appropriation. I mean, look at our budget. It's set on July 1 of every year. And, this year we've got a whopping $55 billion budget. And they added $3.5 billion to executive order and House bill a month and a half after the budget was set. I've never seen that done before, but that's what we call an unfunded mandate. And that's a scary thing to do because then you don't know how that's going to get paid for at the end of the fiscal cycle. We need predictable tax policy, affordable and reliable energy. That's a really big one. Safe communities. If crime's running rampant, it's hard to have businesses. And a regulatory environment that protects quality and safety without stifling growth. Illinois has the workforce infrastructure, the industrial base to lead again, but only if state government partners with job creators instead of working against them.
Okay, well, let's just talk about some of the specific items that we are of specific concern, and that one right at the top of the list is our TMA members tell us that second to payroll, their biggest expenses is energy now. And with that, the company payroll is big enough, are growing. We hope to see that grow, but the energy issue expense is very serious. But not only is the expense serious, now we're looking at reliability. We're not sure that we're going to be having enough energy and consistent energy. And when you talk to some of our members, projects depend on whether or not they have a brownout or a blackout, especially those in the coating industry that have told us about the importance of the temperatures of those coatings. How would you handle the energy demands and the changes that have been made here in Illinois over the past few years?
Well, I think Illinois needs to return to energy realism. Manufacturers need reliable, affordable, baseload power, not unstable systems dependent on weather. The solar panels and the windmills, I don't think are what they were cracked up to be. I don't think they're, and I'll tell you, I'm a city boy and I've been driving all over Illinois. I've been to 86 counties out of 102. And when I go into what I call God's country and see these beautiful farmlands, and then there's solar panels all over the place, windmills all over the place. And then I'm a researcher, I'm an investigator. That's what I've done for 30 years. So any topic, even before today to prepare for this, I've done a lot of research on the different energy types. And the solar panels have a lot of flaws. They actually bleed technology into the soil. It could cause you not to be able to farm that land for 20 years. The windmills, same issue. Those rubber bands break and then they leak oil. The main repair reasoning for the turbines are bird strikes. So I don't think it's very environmental. And, when you do these leases with these solar companies, especially with these farms, these people should realize that when you transfer ownership of that property, the leaseor gets first crack at that property because they already have a contracted obligation to have that land leased to them. Illinois sits on an estimated 500 years of coal. I had no idea we had so much coal in Illinois. And there's modern clean coal technologies allow us to extract and use that resource far more efficiently and responsibly than in the past. I learned what scrubbers are, right? So that is a technology that when they use coal as an energy source, it's actually a very clean process that is probably the cleanest energy source that we can have. And we are sitting on a lot of it here in Illinois. As governor, I would support to continue to use a modernization of coal and natural gas for reliable baseload energy. I would oppose policies that force premature dependence on wind and solar, which are unreliable and environmentally disruptive. Encourage solar installation on rooftops. Even farms. I see these panels on farmable land, and it's like, these should be rooftops on poles, over parking garages. They should utilize solar panels where it makes more sense, not on farmable land. Manufacturing facilities, warehouses, homes. Ensure energy policy is driven by grid stability, industrial demand, cost control, not ideology, because a lot of times we get into the weeds of, the idea of energy and what we would want it to be, but we have to look at what is available here in Illinois. Manufacturers would have a seat at the table because, what I've done in the sheriff's office and the way I've been very successful in the past with really everything that we've done is through teamwork. We call them task forces in the police world, but what I'm calling them for government are advisory panels. I've created already the beginnings of an advisory panel for agriculture and an advisory panel for constitutional gun rights. And now we're looking at an advisory panel that we want to establish for manufacturers and a manufactured advisory panel. So energy policy reflects operational reality. In any circumstance, you want to include the stakeholders in the decision making. I mean, that's the only way to make things work.
Just as a follow-up on that, what are your views on the nuclear power that we have here in Illinois and the proposals for the small nuclear plants? Do you have a position on that?
Yeah, actually, I think that is going to be another very stable, dependable power source. The problem with the current nuclear plants now is that they're telling all those companies that they're end of life. So they're not doing a lot of the maintenance, a lot of the repairs, they're prematurely closing them down with expectations that they're not going to be survivable. And I think that's the wrong way to go, especially I know down the road, I think it's 6 to 8 years off where nuclear fusion is going to be, portable reactors are being created. I think that's going to actually be the eventual future. But I think in that 6 to 8 years, I personally believe that the coal source, we have so much here that's the stopgap in between until we get to the nuclear option.
Well, with the kind of winter we've had, we certainly do want to think about it, making consistent energy just for the residents as well, and that's a considerable concern. Okay, let's just shift on to the issue of foreign companies. This current leadership has extended invitations to and financial incentives to companies that are based outside of America, including those that are involved and partially owned by the communist regimes. How would you work this? How would you want your administration to deal with issues like this and requests like this in the future? How would you handle that?
Well, Illinois should never subsidize adversarial foreign interests. I do not support tax incentives or public financing for companies owned or influenced by hostile foreign governments, including communist regimes. That includes ownership of manufacturing facilities, farmland, or critical infrastructure. For existing holdings, Illinois should follow the models used by states like Arkansas. Sarah Huckabee had a really great legislation that she created. Basically, we want to require adversarial foreign owners to divest within a fixed time frame or use lawful tools, including eminent domain. That's what Sarah Huckabee did, where appropriate, to claim strategic assets, where they had it there in Arkansas. It was seed plants. Out here, we're seeing agriculture, and I was really surprised to see that most, as they call them, pork farms or hog farms, I think is what the farmers call them, are all Chinese owned. And when you see them moving into our country and taking over our assets, and they're an adversarial force against America, I would follow Sarah Huckabee's plan that she used in Arkansas to eminent domain our land back. I think Illinois must prioritize national security, domestic manufacturing, and American ownership.
All right, interesting. What would you do about the proposals that we've had consistently over the past few years of abandoning the current flat tax rate for income here in Illinois? What would your response be to that?
Yeah, I oppose replacing Illinois' flat tax with a progressive income tax. Illinois' problem is not revenue, it's spending. I mean, if you look again, for 6 years, I was in our detective division, second biggest county in the state, and all I did was investigate financial crimes, right? So for 6 years, I was the guy who investigated drug cartels, money laundering, embezzling, retail theft rings. And when I apply my training to our Illinois budget, uh, we have problems with how we're spending our money. You know, we do need, and I know everyone uses the word Doge, and I really don't like that word because I'm a forensic auditor. I look at it from that perspective. We have to look at how we're spending our money. Are we following job codes for skills, knowledge, and abilities? Are we bidding properly? You know, a progressive tax, when you're in that range, you know, that introduces uncertainty, discourages investment, accelerates job loss. Manufacturers need predictability, not a tax structure that changes with political winds, because that's the thing. When you make it progressive, you know, that could bounce around from leader to leader.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that response. One of the hottest issues that is going on right now in facing, especially in Illinois here, is immigration. And currently, Illinois is a sanctuary state that has laws defying the local enforcement's law enforcement's cooperation with the federal immigration system. Would you continue the current administration's policy, or would you work with the federal enforcement agencies?
So that's one of my favorite questions. So again, I have the second largest correctional facility in Illinois. And I'm telling you, everyone is playing political games with these raids, right? The raids are just a construct for JB Pritzker to fight with Donald Trump, and it's a political thing. Because here's the truth of it. If I were to say, and mind you, we are violating federal law by not following the immigration laws. When a state law and a federal law conflict, federal law does prevail. We have chosen not to let them prevail, therefore have lost $2 billion in grant funding every year because we're not following federal law. Here's how easy it would. I could stop this in a day. My first day as governor, you can do an executive order. You don't need to House bill this one. This is something, since we're violating law, could be changed in a day, an executive order to eliminate the sanctuary state. Now, here's how this solves the problem, though. Right now, ICE has to go out and do raids in neighborhoods. That's the only way they can acquire their target. They do not have access to our correctional facilities. That's something that changed, that needs to go back, because again, I've gone to 86 counties over the last 11 months, and you know, you can drive for 7 hours in Illinois and still be in Illinois. It is a huge state. It has 92 jails. Mine is just one out of 92. Before the sanctuary state started, I've been around a while, we would call ICE when we have somebody who committed a crime that you and I would go to jail for. And then it's called an ICE hold. And ICE has 3 days to get there, or they have to pay full reimbursement for food, lodging, medical, everything. So they have to do weekly pickups. Now this is something I know very well, especially government and law enforcement government, head count and how they work. They're getting about 15 to 20 people a weekend out of Chicago, going through all hell to make that happen. I mean, they're being attacked, they're being doxxed, they're in conflict with some of their political leaders out there. You'd get probably about 250 people a week just through criminality. If we said, ICE, 92 jails are going to start calling you, they would have to actually stop all proactivity. They would have to add about 20% to their headcount, and they would be a reactive transport unit that's going to 92 jails a week. And it would handle the problem the way it should be handled, just through, everyone says they want to handle it through criminality. Then just give ICE access to our correctional facilities. That actually solves the problem overnight.
So what would you do with employers? Would you encourage them to use the E-Verify system, or how would they determine what would be the best situation for their employees?
Yes, I support lawful workforce verification through E-Verify. At the same time, Illinois already has better legal alternatives to meet labor needs. Second chance employment programs that work when properly managed, veteran employment incentives connecting skilled disciplined workers with manufacturers, expanded apprenticeships and skill-based training pipelines. We don't need illegal labor to sustain manufacturing. We need leadership that connects employers with willing, lawful workers.
Okay, and one of the biggest issues that our small and mid-sized manufacturers, who are many of them are contracted with the big guys, and they work with them. They're just as important and need to have equal access and availability to make the contracts and to offer these services. But the fact is that the talent isn't there. We're not encouraging young people to go into these careers. I was just wondering if you would encourage more skilled talent training here in Illinois, and just your thoughts about that specifically for manufacturing.
Yeah, so the workforce is changing rapidly. Artificial intelligence is replacing many traditional desk jobs, administrative jobs. When the data centers all start up, which are just starting to go, that's going to get worse. Our education system must prepare students for careers that will still exist and grow. Skilled trades, advanced manufacturing, maintenance logistics, technical operations that require hands-on expertise. Illinois should expand career and technical education pathways that connect high schools directly with manufacturers. This includes apprenticeships, certifications, early exposure to trades, and advanced manufacturing environments. I want to just analogize with you real quick what I've learned in a correctional facility that would translate directly into how I would bring this into our school system. I have a lot of people come in on substance. They're self-medicating for mental health issues. We get through all of that stuff. But then the first thing we do is we go into job training. I actually let College of DuPage build a satellite college in my jail. So we're a satellite, we're a college in my correctional facility. That brought my recidivism numbers down from 75 to 15%. All those opioid numbers down from 90 to 20% because we're educating people. We make sure they get their GEDs because half of them can't read. And you tell me what's going on with our education system when, I can get somebody that cannot read or write, and we get them a high school equivalency. Then we train them in college. We take off their gang tattoos, and then we train them in engine repair or hydroponics or outdoor horticulture or truck driving. We're about to open up a barber shop. We have all these different job options, and it is creating people who are leaving jail and earning $50,000 to $60,000 a year 2 weeks out of jail. And you know how we figured out which jobs to use? We went to the unions and said, where are you struggling? If there's no welders, okay, we do 3 types of welding now. Truck drivers, you need truck drivers. We need farmers. So we do the hydroponics and small engine repair to create farmers. See, in school, this is the frustrating part for me. My son just got his master's in business and economics, and he's been hunting for a job for 2 months, done 200 interviews. I think he's gone through 100 rejections so far, and still doesn't have a job. I can't understand why we're not realizing that it's trades, that it's manufacturing. These are the jobs that are going to be something that AI isn't going to be able to do, isn't going to replace. They're going to be the sustainable jobs. And, in college, in high school, we should get rid of the ideologies, the politics, that's distraction, and get down to teaching somebody a physical job. They don't even do wood shop or home ec in school anymore. And those are life skills. But I think what a good school environment should be doing is training you for trades jobs. I think we should get trades into all of the schools. I think that a trade training carries, I'm going to say it, more value than a college degree, because a college degree doesn't have certainty, right? It has no clear career path. You have to just take that degree, start applying, and hope for the best. With the trade, you have a skill. And if you work in, manufacturing or one of the trades, that's a guaranteed job because you have that skill. Those should all be implemented within high school and college environments.
Thank you so much for answering our questions so concisely. And I'm going to turn it back over to Rich because he's got a few questions from our direct viewers. So let's turn it back over. Rich, thank you.
Thanks so much,
Sheriff.
Fran. Thanks. All right, now it's time for questions and answers. So if you do have a question, you can type it in the Q&A tab on the Zoom control panel. In the meantime, we do have a question, Sheriff, and it's kind of just what we were talking about. Not sure if you're aware, but there is a situation that's starting with the 2027 school year. There's a new state law that kicks in that's now going to require every high school graduate in Illinois to take 2 years of foreign languages in order to graduate. And it's really been concerning to a lot of the schools, especially those with strong CTE programs, which are career technical education classes like machining and other trades. And TMA is actually trying to get this changed to allow CTE classes to be taken as an alternative, because as you mentioned, not every kid wants to go to college. And if you don't want to go to college, why do you necessarily need to take 2 years of foreign language to graduate? So, I mean, the question to you is, what do you think about that pending state law, and what would you do to try and change it?
I would do everything I could, whether it be through, legislation, executive order, to put a halt to that immediately. This goes back into letting foreign companies occupy so much of our land. When people immigrate, and I am all for legal immigration, but it has to be immigration with assimilation, right? They're supposed to, come into our country and assimilate into our jobs, our job training, all that kind of stuff. And what we seem to be doing is we're trying to almost, I don't know, assimilate into the rest of the world instead of America. I think us forcing to learn foreign languages in a school environment, I don't think that's right. I would much rather see trades be mandatory. Trades are going to guarantee a job. What benefit, I've got to say, in America, what clear-cut benefit do you get from learning a foreign language? I mean, and which one is it going to be? Are they going to prioritize, Spanish over German, over French? I hate to say it. I don't know any institution in Illinois that is going to be dominant speaking in another language. Everything I do, even in our correctional facility, we have the Sheriff's Work Alternative Program. If you're a DUI or whatever, we get you we don't have you go to jail so you can get a job. We have work release so you can keep your job. We do all these job training so you have a job. Everything should be going towards jobs, not, let's learn a foreign language for the sake of it. Let's take a class for the sake of it. Let's, how about this? How about we start preparing people for the working world? That's the type of legislation I think would be good legislation, something that's preparing our children for a future working. I hate to say it. When I was a kid, I shoveled snow for money, cut lawn for money. As soon as I turned 15, I got a worker's permit. I've never not had a job. Jobs are what everything is about in life. That's what keeps you able to buy your house, get a car, pay your bills. It's all about jobs. The foreign languages are not going to ensure you any type of employment, but a trade will.
Thanks for that, Sheriff. All right, well, unfortunately, we've actually run out of time. We're actually a little bit over, but we want to thank you for joining us. Before we leave, though, Sheriff, do you have any closing thoughts for TMA members?
Yeah, again, we've realized that the entire world works around jobs. I know I keep saying it, but it's what's made us so successful in DuPage County is realizing, get people educated, get them their high school diploma, get them actual trade work, get them, I'll tell you, what? One of the highest paying jobs now is welding. Would have never known. And who would have figured that women are better welders than men? We found that dynamic out too. I don't know if they're more patient, but we are cranking out people that are going into ready-made jobs. They're making money right away. If that can be done in a correctional facility, it sure can be done in high school and college. So again, the world works around employment, and steady, solid, dependable employment is the trades and all of the things that are, more I would say hands-on jobs.
Great. Thanks so much, Sheriff. Well, that'll do it for today's virtual briefing with Sheriff Mendrick. I want to thank the Sheriff and Fran for joining us today, along with all of our TMA members who joined us on the webinar. And as a reminder, you can register now at tmaillinois.org/events for our final 2 gubernatorial briefings. Thanks again, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Take care.